Good evening and welcome to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen Workshop. It's May 27th, 2021, and it is 6:30. First, we will have the Citizens Forum. Unless you're recognized by the mayor and granted permission to speak, you are not to address the board. Otherwise, make any verbal utterance or audible to any member of the board during these proceedings. If you do, you may be declared out of order. If you persist after being declared out of order, your conduct will be deemed substantial interference with these proceedings, whereupon you will be removed from these chambers. Each person will have 3 minutes to speak. You'll be asked to come forward, state your name and address for the record. First, we have Mr. Jim McFarland.
Did you say state your name and address?
Yes, sir.
Jim McFarland, 980 Battle Road. I guess I want to start, I appreciate consideration of this project, and I want to start with some of the family history, how long we've been out here, and some of the interactions with the city of Laverne in the past. I feel like the McFarland family, including myself, has been pretty good to Laverne so far. There's been several times back in history the family's been asked for not favors, but just to help with certain projects. To name a few, the sewer that's coming out of the back of Woodsong subdivision, the S-curve that we've been talking about for a good while, that's actually been improved 3 times in history. We did land swapping with other families, gave a little more right-of-way. And even for the school, we set the fence back even further to clear the line of sight so the school traffic could see when they were heading north, wanting to turn on to Lake Road. We got McFarland Point subdivision. Prior to the subdivision, we moved the fence back and so they could widen. That was a really bad spot in the road, and we fixed that, and that was prior to the subdivision. There was a water pressure issue back in the past, and we helped get things worked out for the water tower that's now at McFarland Point. So, and there's others. I just feel like we've been pretty good to the city. Regardless of what happens here, I have no plans of moving. I'll still be in and out of Laverne, traveling the roads. Personally, I think it's a pretty good plan. I think it's good for everybody. This process has been going on since, for me, the decision was made in 2014 to sell the farm, and I've got mixed emotions about it, of course. And
Mr. McFarland, your time is up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have Aaron Holliday.
Aaron Holliday, 2034 Abingdon Drive in Laverne. I currently serve as a planning commissioner for the city of Laverne, and I'll be very careful in my comments about Arbor Ridge. It has been said that the Planning Commission is not to focus on the economic impact of commercial and retail properties of Arbor Ridge, and that the Planning Commission is not to look at, certainly we can't do anything about what the town of Smyrna has done And we're not to look at the economic opportunity that neighboring municipalities, be it Davidson County or the town of Smyrna, would have on this. And so because those would not create a conflict with my service on the Planning Commission, it's those very topics that I would like to address. I feel like the economic impact of commercial retail properties would be very beneficial for the city. We have a lack of commercial retail properties in our city. We have an abundance of warehouse space in our city. We have a nice proportion of residential properties in our city. Where we could really use some increase is in commercial retail properties. I feel like that the strain placed on Waldron Road by Gwynn Farms is nothing that the town or that the city of Laverne had anything to do with, and the town of Smyrna has made this decision, and it will result in an enormous increase of traffic on Waldron Road. I served 8 years on the public school board representing this area and this constituency. We never built a school unless there were 6 to 14 trailer classrooms in the parking lot. Infrastructure does not typically go ahead of the need. Typically the need happens and then the infrastructure is improved. And the need is certainly present, and this particular development shows a pathway to improving the infrastructure. The last thing is that from my home in Laverne, I often cross through this area on my way to Brentwood. I'm very familiar with Carruthers Farms as well as development on Burkett Road, and the opportunity is there to establish retail presence in this area and take tax dollars from residents of Davidson County and from Gwynn Farms in Smyrna and capture them for the benefit of all citizens in the city of Laverne. And if we miss this opportunity, the development will happen somewhere outside of our city. And for all of those reasons, as a planning commissioner, I voted in favor of this, but it will come to you with an unfavorable recommendation from the Planning Commission.
Mr. Holliday, your time is up. Thank you. Next, Ms. Becky Pollock.
Becky Pollock, 8041 Burntwood Drive, Laverne. I'm opposed to this development. I don't think anything in that area should be rezoned until the infrastructure's improved, meaning the roads are in place and the sewer and the water are all that can take on everything that's on that side of West Laverne. I don't personally believe that commercial should be there. I don't think anybody wakes up and says, hey, you know, the American dream is to look at a gas station or a liquor store or a nail salon, you know, when your kids are playing in the backyard. I mean, I just don't think that's a good part of that development for that piece of property. So thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And last is Ms. Luann Grandinetti.
Is it appropriate for me to relinquish part of my time?
No, ma'am, the person would
Okay.
have to sign up.
Okay. Okay. Well, two things I want to point out is that I've done a lot of research on this, and not less than 50,000 in population with lots of vehicle traffic and pedestrian is a good location viability for a grocery store. Period, end of story. Look it up yourself. It's easy. We've discussed the revenue data. The numbers don't work. The grocery store, if they have a gross revenues of $1 million, you know how much Laverne will get of that? A fraction of 40,000, which is what the 4% grocery tax is, okay? I've mentioned the gas tax and convenience store before. Again, shared sales tax netting about $24,000 a year, and Laverne will get part of that. Gas tax, you don't get now. It doesn't matter how much you pump. In Laverne, it's based on population, period, end of story. I looked at 4 years. Last night, I could not sleep. I looked at 4 years of BOMA meetings. 4 unfavorable recommendations in 4 years have come from the Planning Commission. No none of BOMA, none of these boards, which one time was Mayor Waldron, voted against the PC. So are you going to set a precedent on this? Nobody, 4 years, you've not voted against the PC. So I urge you not to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. With that, we'll close out the citizens forum and move on to the workshop agenda. The prayer Tuesday night will be by Alderman Waldron. Pledge of Allegiance by Alderman Honeycutt. You should all have a copy of the minutes from the May 4th, 2021 regular meeting. We will have two presentations. We're going to recognize a couple of Eagle Scouts, and we will also have a presentation for a Senate joint resolution honoring K-9 Officer Jacques. We're having departmental reports. Going on to old business. First reading, ordinance 2021-04, an ordinance to amend the City of Laverne zoning ordinance by changing the official zoning map for tax map 32, parcel 4, and tax map 29, parcels 40 and 41, consisting of approximately 226.35 acres located adjacent to the intersection of Blair Road and Waldron Road from an R1 low-density residential zoning district to a PDR, planned density residential district, zoning district. On March 2nd, 2021, the Board of Mayor and Aldermen sent this back to the Planning Commission. Item was deferred at the March 30th and 2021 and the April 27th, 2021 Planning Commission meetings. On May 25th, 2021, the Planning Commission gave an unfavorable recommendation. With that, I'll open it up for discussion.
I guess I'll be the elephant in the room. First of all, this is, and I told Steve a while ago, this is not personal, this is business. There's nobody in this city, I'm going to be lengthy, by the way. If you got a timer on me, you might want to tell me. Nobody in this city knows more about losing your little piece of tranquility more than I do. 2013, Mayor then Cena Mosley called me and said, "We got it." My first comical reaction was, "Keep it, I don't want it." I said, "What'd you get?" She said, "We got Walmart." I said, "Really?" She said, "Yeah." I said, "Man, that's great. You got Walmart." I knew that Cena, Tom, Kathy Tyson, Chris Farmer, I knew all those people had been working on a bunch of, I guess Graham was there too. He went to the retreats, and they fought hard because a lot of people don't know that Laverne was in the red. We needed something. We needed it. We didn't want it. We needed it. I said, "Well, why do I get this phone call?" She said, "Because they want to buy that 45 plus acres in front of your house and put it there." So my first thought was, man, I am not liking this at all. So after a couple of days of pouting, I realized that this city, this would be a good tax base for this city. It would give the citizens a place to shop and go to. So I said, well, so for 15 years, my kids and other kids stood in my front yard and we hit baseballs, softballs, tennis balls, no traffic coming, of course, into that field. I used to take the kids over there and do a little overnight camping thing. We used to take our four-wheelers over there and ride it. So when I lost that, it was not good for me personally, but for the city of Laverne and for the citizens that shop there, it's great. They don't have to go to Smyrna anymore. They don't have to go to Antioch anymore. So I understand losing that. Believe me, I understand it. But I've accepted it, and it's turned out great for the city. I still have a few problems, but I deal with it. Now, the second thing I want to talk about is I got an email today, or yesterday, about the planning commission meeting, and I watched it, but the email said that our engineer, Adam, spoke about the water and sewer and the infrastructure of a development of this magnitude, that we were not ready for it. So here in this forum tonight, I'm going to give Adam the opportunity to tell us what he said, because I went back and watched that meeting. And that's not what he said. Adam?
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Board, as I indicated at the Planning Commission, and is common with every other subdivision development coming into the city, we would require them to extend services into the property, which they've indicated they're willing to do. Now, the services they would have to extend is that they would have to basically upgrade an existing pump station, sewer pump station, lift station. They would have to run all the sewer for their development. They would also have to tie into our existing water supply that is on Blair Road, which is a 6-inch water line. That 6-inch water line was recently pressure tested. I believe the fire flows were somewhere in the range of 1,200. Our utility engineer and fire department can tell you that, but anything over 1,000 is pretty solid in general. So, water and sewer, the city can take it. They'll just have to pay for the upgrades, which is standard. There's nothing really outside the ordinary there. As far as traffic goes, I was kind of going into it before there was a legitimate point of order pointed out. But there is, in the highway capacity manual, it basically says a 2-lane roadway really can flow about 15,000 cars a day. Now, the current roadway has about 5,000. Now, all of that being said, there's a certain takeaway for the quality of the roadway. So if there's no shoulders, the highway capacity manual takes 10% off that number. If there's significant vertical alignment, which are all the hills out there, it takes a little bit more off that number and chips away, but there's still probably a rough capacity of 12,000 cars per day allowable, at least by the highway capacity manual. If they were to proceed with developing this, if we're comparing it to another R1 development, which is what their base zoning is, so they couldn't have any greater density than R1 per 4, we're really talking about the difference between 540 houses for a straight R1 development, just because you lose a little bit due to land development trends, and 571 houses. So you're talking a difference of 31 houses, which in the grand scheme of traffic is not that significant. I mean, you might feel it maybe, but probably not. That's really where we're at, just infrastructure-wise, and all this is, pretty bog standard stuff for any subdivision coming into the city. They'll, of course, be required to do a traffic impact study if this was to pass, and we'll look at, basically their entrances, exits, any impacts that they'll have on it. They may have to construct some mitigation measures, right turn lanes in, that type of thing, maybe in addition to whatever comes out of this development agreement, which is included. But that's just where the infrastructure's at.
All right, thank you, Adam. Now, for a long time, I was against BRS, and they're right there, and I'm looking them in the face. I'm not trying to hide from them, because they were going to do some things that nobody liked. One of them was townhomes. Mr. McGill's not here tonight. I stood on his front porch and told him that I would not, under no circumstances, be for this if those townhomes were in place. Them gentlemen right there will tell you, just like Steve will, I fought them tooth and nail for them townhomes. Them townhomes are gone. But that still wasn't good enough. We wanted something else. The impact fees. There was a big hoopla about the impact fees and paying for the roads. All that's gone. Not only is the city not reimbursing them with impact fees, they're paying us back money, $1.3 million when it's all said and done, above and beyond. The schools, as Adam mentioned, it don't matter if it's commercial or not, or R1, the schools are going to gain the same amount of kids, because whether you build all those houses R1 or if you build them otherwise, there's going to be kids. Plus, hopefully, maybe when those, what they call the older people, I don't want to call them that because I happen to be a senior myself, but the older people, they won't have any kids. I got a list here from our economic, development yesterday. If you stand at the intersection of Blair Road and Walden Road and make a circle 1 mile, the city of Laverne loses $68 million a year to Smyrna, Nolensville. On the other hand, if Walmart on this side of town sells a gallon of milk in a roundabout way, sooner or later, there's a little bit of that money that goes to that side of town. This side of town don't get anything, which brings me to this. I've heard comments out there about raise taxes, pay for the road. Man, we got people in this city that can't even afford to pay their water bill. You think we're going to raise their taxes? It ain't happening. And we can't just pick out certain people and say, raise their taxes. As you see, I got a list because I've been quiet about this. I've been very quiet. I've listened to everybody. Somebody made a comment, the thing the other night about returning our emails. It's our obligation. When this thing started, I don't think any of you that ever sent me an email, I replied back to you. It may not have been long and lengthy, but I replied back. But now I don't reply because it's from the same people talking the same stuff. So it's my turn to talk. I feel your pain. I love it out in that area. I think it's beautiful, but we got to look out for the city. People talked about, we'll remember that come election time. Well, if you want somebody on this board that's for a certain area or for certain people or for certain incomes or for certain size homes, come 2024, I can assure you don't want me up here because I'm not that person. I'm not a bobblehead. I'm speaking for me. I'm not speaking for these other people. I'm going to do what's right for 40,000 citizens. I want them all to reap the benefits. I want the people in the Arbor Ridge area to reap the benefits from Walmart. That's what I want. There's been attorneys involved. I know Evan has put in relentless hours trying to work with the developers' attorneys to try. The opposition asked for certain restrictions not coming out there. They worked through it. They got them in there. Nobody wanted tobacco and stuff. It's in there. So it's not like they've not gave all they can give. I've heard comments about if we get a grocery store, I ain't shopping at it. You don't shop there now. So if we get a grocery store out there, people are going to shop there because I can use these names because I had the okay to use them. Mr. McFarland, he's sick to death of this. That man owns that property, and this is the third time he's tried to sell it. How'd you like it if we came to your house and said, hey, you can't do this? You can't do that. That's not right, folks. I talked to Josh Grayson, the country music singer that lives right there on Blair Road, 2 doors down from Steve McGill. Josh is all about it. He's far enough out in the country to have a country setting, he says, but he's close enough in to where if he could have some convenience. Now, he was opposed to it until he found out everything that they have done, just like I was. I was opposed to it. It's a catch-22. For years, I've heard, why can't we do something about Walden Road? Well, this board has made the decision to do that, but we need some help. We got to have help. There's only one way to run a city, and that's with taxes, period. And we need some help. And the commercial will help us. We can't build the road if we can't get some commercial, and we can't get the commercial if we can't build the roads. But I think in the future, in my opinion, board members, if you haven't figured it out, I'm for this plan. I was against it at first, but I think we've worked hard. We've done all we can do. BRS has worked, and they've tried to meet everything in the middle. They've gave up and gave up. Our attorneys have worked hard, our city engineers, Bo has worked hard, everybody, and I'm done.
Thank you, sir. Alderwoman Honeycutt, Alderman Waldron, Alderman Coates, would y'all like to add anything?
I want to feed kind of off of what Vice Mayor No went with. It's been a lot of give and take on both ends with BRS and with the city. Some have given and some have taken, and it's vice versa. Both everybody on our side and their side has given and taken. Everything that Vice Mayor No said, I couldn't agree with more. The only thing I would like to throw in is the emergency services on that side of 24 will be helped tremendously. The response times will be unreal to have an extra police substation over there, another fire department, another medic. When you have that golden hour to save someone's life, that's a big deal. And to the board or to you guys, it might not be a big deal, but that's a huge deal for me because I've been on both sides of that. I agree with Steve as well, I'm sorry, Vice Mayor, that taxes are what runs a city, and we need the commercial, and I'm all for it.
Anyone else?
I'll jump in, Mr. Mayor. Just like to thank all the citizens that emailed, called, and phoned me. Those for and against. There was some against, and there's some for. Surprisingly, the people that I spoke to for it have understood the issues that there have been on that side of town and looking forward for things moving forward. It was a long, arduous debate, discussion with BRS, with the city staff and myself, but we compromised. Not a word you hear much in politics, but we compromised. So we've tried to listen to the citizens that are against it, and we listened to the people that were for it. We try to put together a package that is acceptable to all sides. And I think we'll meet that requirement as we speak. For the issue or the item brought up in the citizens' comments regarding the last 4 years, on my 19 plus years on the Planning Commission, there have been 2 or 3 times where the Planning Commission made a recommendation either for or against, and sometimes it was 7-0 against, and then it came to this board and it did pass. And I was upset as a Planning Commission of what was going on. But what I didn't know was the financial side of the transaction, why the Mayor Alderman went against the Planning Commission. And so I've been on both sides of both the Planning Commission and now on this board. As the elected official, sometimes you've got to make tough decisions. And this is one of them. This is historic for Laverne as far as I'm concerned. So I'm proud to say that we worked through it, we've come to a resolution, we've argued, we've fought, we've been back and forth on different transactions, and I'm pleased the city now is taking control of the widening of Walden Road. BRS has nothing to do with it, and we're going to get that done at the same time as the BRS development will go in. And through the discussions and the last entrance of the document that's put in the back of this book that is in your packets, it just shows how we got to BRS working with us to pay the city some funds for each phase they go through. Very important for the city. Very important for the city. So with that being said, I'd just like to say, appreciate all the effort that was put in, Evan, city staff, and BRS, and Ms. McFarlane. And I look forward to the vote on Tuesday night, but I'm for it as presented.
Alderman Waldron?
I guess I put my 2 cents worth in it. I've been on the board going on 15 years. When I first got on the board, I first got on the planning commission, and the people I kind of was on there with, we sort of made a rule of thumb that we was going to leave the other side of the interstate, that's Blair Road, Walden Road, single family. We had enough starter homes and multifamily homes at the Lake Forest. And that kind of went to the golden rule. You know, we've had, when I was mayor, I think it was 3 developments that started out there, and you know, we mixed use, and we voted down. Woodsong was already in development time I got on there, but the people on Blair Road, they was against Woodsong, Brookside, most of it out there. It was country living, but it was single family homes. I think I voted on some of them, but most of it was out there on multi-family homes. I voted against it because, you know, we kind of made a pact, you know, that we was going to leave that single family, because you know, everybody talked in the day, and I'm glad I wore my old breeches because it goes above my ankles. I could say, I keep bringing up phrases that my uncle used to say. My uncle used to say, if you're going to lie to me, be honest about it. You know, it's really nothing wrong with the development out there. It's just, you know, it's a good development, but the wrong place. You know, it's, I know Mr. Fallon's a fine guy, and part of me says, you know, a man should be able to do what he wants to do with his property. But you got people out there that have been on there 15 years, it's got five acres. At one time out there on Walden Road, you couldn't build up there around the Parkers and them unless you built on 5 acres. My grandfather, he was raised out there. My family's been on that side of town for over 200 years, and my grandfather thought it was a shame if you had less than 50 acres. You know, times it changes. You know, he's been gone over 40 years, and if he's seen what we have done with his land out there, because it wasn't but 200 years ago, it wasn't but really 2 families out there. That was the Waldrons and the people who used to live at Walnut Ridge. You know, that was 200 years ago, and it's changed. You know, I know my grandfather, they wouldn't let him in the door because he would come in shooting to see how it's going on. But you know, I'm just I'm gonna vote my feelings, and I'm sure everybody else in the board will. And you know, that's about all I got to say.
Thank you, sir. I do want to address some comments that were made last night, Tuesday night at the Planning Commission. It was mentioned at one point this is a high-density development, and a high-density development is 14.52 units per acre. This is 2.89. So if you look at R1, R1 is 2.90. So this is slightly less than that. And I don't think anyone here is looking for high-density development, whether it's over there or over on this side of town. We have some areas that are already zoned for it, both in McFarland Point. You've got some on Carruthers. You've got some here on I want to say, over in the Lake Forest area. One thing that was mentioned as well was that there's no communication, that this was not communicated well to people at all. And I know the developers had public meetings, which aren't required for them to actually hold their own public meetings. They held one in November of 2019 at the hotel off of Sam Ridley. They also had 3 virtual meetings in November of 2020. that many people were on, and I sat there quietly and listened through. It was mentioned the land use plan, that what we have was swiftly amended at the May 28th, 2019 meeting. I watched that meeting today in its entirety, and the final version that was presented to us already had that. There was no amending it in that. It was already there. So it had to occur either at the workshop or even before that. It was mentioned that we cannot afford what we have for police and for our fire department. We absolutely can, and we're adding some police officers this year, as well as some requests for the fire department, including a new Station 1, and we're looking to add on to the police department as well. Green space was mentioned, that whoever builds there, they have to have green space, that this is just pavement and rooftops. There's 38% of this proposed development is green space from what their packet has. It's about 75 acres. It was referenced an email that went to the Planning Commission, and it was mentioned that it went to the city administrator, the city attorney, to the alderman from I think it's a Jason Holman, who requested to discuss the land use with us, and that no one responded. Going back to that email, there was no request for anyone to sit down and have a discussion about the land use with him. The email stated that he would like this deferred at the Planning Commission or rejected until such a time that the public can be brought in to do almost a joint venture. On the email, the city attorney nor the city administrator was on it. The only alderman on there was Alderman Coates, because he's part of the Planning Commission. I did forward it to the city administrator and to the city attorney myself, because at that point it was already stated in the public that an attorney was hired and that no options were off the table. Well, anytime that we have any threats or any inklings of a lawsuit, we always send that to the city attorney for him to address versus individual board members to go through and discuss anything with an attorney. So that would be the most likely reason, and then the rest of the board they weren't on the email. Let's see here, because I made a lengthy list like you did as well, Vice Mayor. Let's see here. It was brought up about CCRs, about them not being in the packet. They were submitted per our city planner with the first submissions, so that was there. Going back to the Planning Commission meeting back in May of 2019, as it was stated by our city engineer, the land use plan is a 40,000-foot view of the city. It is policy framework to see if it's consistent, to see if what is occurring in the city is consistent. When we adopted it, the commercial, like I said, was already in there. It wasn't something where there was a request to add that in. It was already in. They had labeled C1, and then they had mentioned in there that they would have commercial, and that they would fix that from C1 to C2. And that was by Micah. When we discussed about recommendations with the Planning Commission, I remember back in 2017, there was a favorable recommendation for the same lot, the same piece of property with D.R. Horton. Mr. McFarland, I think you remember those people. And that was an instance where the Board of Mayor and Aldermen went against that recommendation. There's times where Planning Commission makes a recommendation the board doesn't agree with, and vice versa. We listen, we evaluate, and we go from there. As it was stated last night, Planning Commission looks at one aspect. The Board of Mayor and Aldermen looks at all aspects. So that's my thoughts on it from just going through and watching that meeting again, and then going back and researching some of our past. I can tell you this is probably, besides Alderman Coates, I've probably been in more meetings about this. This has been almost a 3-year process, if not more. And a lot of it was, and the BRS team can confirm this. This was, for the most part, at the beginning, a lot of it was, no, we don't like this. No, this needs to change. No, and the other aspect is you need to meet with the public. That was the other thing that was told right off the bat. So it's gone back and forth. The development agreement, just like Alderman Coates said, I've got to absolutely praise our staff. There's probably more than 30 iterations of that development agreement from where it's gone back and forth, where, and that's part of negotiations. So there's been a lot going on. So for me, and I think many people will agree, once we actually get past this, I will be happy, because this has been going on for so long, for so many years, and has realistically taken a lot of time to get to this point. But when looking at it, you have to weigh, and this is something my wife knows I've struggled with, is do I look at that and do what's best for me politically? Alderman Waldron, you said in one meeting, I remember, that voting for anything out there like this is political suicide. And do I look at doing something as far as what's best for me, or do I look at what's best for the city? And that is what you have to figure out. For me, if I'm the kind of politician that I believe I am, I'm going to do what's best for the city, what I feel is best for the city. And if it's, if that's what it comes to for the city and for, my political career, it is what it is. We should all be doing what's best for our city. So with that, we'll move on to item number 2. Second reading, ordinance 2021-12. An ordinance to amend the 2020-2021 fiscal year general fund budget. This is about $105,000 discussion that we had. It came out of our budget retreats. This is to purchase 3 vehicles, a truck for the codes inspector, a vehicle for the city planner, and a maintenance van for Parks and Rec. Does anyone have any questions on this? And this is something that we discussed at the planning, or at the budget workshops. Alderman Waldron, I was curious, you recused yourself with the first reading of this. Was there some kind of conflict with these vehicles, or?
No, I just had a conflict on it. I just wanted a little more time to read up on it.
Okay.
I do have one question, Mr. Mayor. On the van, 35,000, the 2 vehicles I understand 35, the van at 35 seems a little low. That's the
That's the state price.
state price?
But
Okay,
that also includes all of the shelving in the van.
okay,
And that's what we like, is low prices,
that's fine.
as long as it's quality. Any other questions? Okay.
And I don't think I excused, I think I abstained. I don't think I excused, I think the record showed I should have abstained. But anyway,
Okay.
that was the reason I just wanted to read up on it a little bit more.
Okay, and then moving on to second reading ordinance 2021-13, an ordinance of the City of Laverne, Tennessee, adopting the annual budget and tax rate for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022. There will be a public hearing on this item held at 6:30 p.m. on June 1st, 2021. Does anyone have any questions about the budget?
I think we've been through it, Mr. Mayor. We've discussed it at length, and I'm glad it's come together and it's formulating correctly, as we discussed the retreats, and we had some good communication. I think the staff did a good job pulling it all together, so looking forward to moving forward.
Well, I would like to state, so that the public knows, this budget, as proposed, does not add debt to the city. It actually puts a couple of $1 million into the reserve fund, or at least this year's budget does, what's left over. But it does not, in this form, incur any new debt. Again, does anyone have any questions on this? Alderman Waldron, if you don't mind me asking, you voted against this, and I saw in the paper you cited, as far as the police and fire wanting more for them. And I know the fire department said in our budget workshops that at least the reason why they weren't asking for people is they don't have space, which is a similar situation for our police department, except for they're able to work in a few people. So I just wanted to ask you about that because that never came up as far as a request in our budget workshops for more people from you.
I know I brought it up 2 or 3 times, you know. I think we're 40, Chief, how many policemen we have? 40, 45 short of what recommended, about 45?
Yes, sir.
About 45, and then on the fire, I think we're still about, what, 15 or 16, you know, it's just hard for me to vote for a budget of this magnitude without, you know, some beef with the fire and police, you know.
Well, but you didn't ask for any whenever we had the workshops.
Well,
You didn't ask for an increase of those people.
I brought it up, you know, I brought up a number of times, because I asked the chief, police chief and the fire chief both about, and then the only thing response I got from the fire chief, he didn't know where to put them.
Right, he said after he gets a new fire station, he'd come back and ask for 10 to 12 people.
But we all had the opportunity to send it to Bruce about what we wanted to try and make this, budget go through. Of course, I don't remember exactly what was said. So,
Well, there wasn't a request to add additional police or fire beyond what
was
was,
not a
beyond
request.
what was requested. It was mentioned the numbers. Alderman Waldron, I do remember you mentioning the numbers and asking about the staffing levels, but there was never a request to add on to what's already requested.
Even with this development coming on, it's based on, people who's living here, that's gonna put it even farther behind the 8 ball on police and fire.
Well, thankfully,
For years, everybody's always come to my doorstep and said, fire and police, fire and police. You know, we just need more fire and police, and I'm all for that.
well, I know our interim Chief Davis has done a wonderful job with filling the long-standing openings that we've had for years and years and getting those filled with new officers that are on the streets. So definitely praise to you for that, sir.
Yeah, I'm not kicking the fire chief or the police chief. You know, they're doing the best they can with what they got. But, you know, 45 policemen short, at least 16 firemen, and that's probably last year's schedule. We're probably even further, even if this development gets passed, we're even gonna be further behind the 8 ball. You know, I've been out of it 2 years and got back in, and I was just appalled that, you know, Laverne hadn't moved on farther with police and fire. You know, I'm getting caught up, and you know, I'm just for more fire and police. You know, we just got to look out for the citizens.
Chief, did you want to add something?
I do. I did not, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Alderman, I did not in this particular budget proposal ask for officers because of the deficit that we already have. It's not for the sake of not trying with the current climate of the image of police officers in society right now. It's just a lack of applicants. So even if we added those 45 positions today, they wouldn't be filled just for the lack of applicants. So we will net, if this budget is passed, we will net 3 new officers, but we will also gain positions in specialized areas that will be beneficial for the police department as I see it. Like adding a new K-9 to have 4 K-9 to where we'll have 2 police dogs on shift at least 20 hours a day, 7 days a week. Sergeant Eubank gained 2 new officers to where him as a supervisor won't have to sit in meets like this. He could be out supervising the shift, just like Lieutenant Call should be supervising officers on the shift. So we gain officers in that aspect. Having somebody to come in with policy, that helps Evan out. Having that in place because we will get back on top of our policies and things. So we are gaining 3 police officers in this budget, but we're also gaining new positions within the agency that's going to be beneficial for all involved.
But a lot of them positions, as new positions, in past experience, some of the officers, it's officers now could move up. So you could have more on the top end, and you'd even have less on the bottom end.
So, yeah, you're correct, but the way that it would take place, so like right now, Mr. McLeod, he'll tell you, I've already submitted names to invite people for testing. I have 5 officers in process now that's waiting to go to the academy. I have 1 in the academy now, and I have 2 coming out of field training in about 4 weeks. So we're back to within 3 officers of our authorized positions that we have now. So everything else would be above and beyond. So we're moving in the right direction, but I couldn't justify asking for more officers just to have 10 more vacancies to have to fill at a later date.
And I can't say I remember a time serving on this board that we've ever had that many positions filled. It was traditionally that we would have a ton of openings.
Yes.
And so it's great to see that and see those new officers start hitting the community.
When I took over when I was appointed interim, we had 16 vacant positions, and now we're down to single digits. So we're moving in the right direction. We just got to keep pressing.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. Moving on to the consent agenda. Approve city bids and purchases. First, we have the Charter Place realignment project. Adam, would you like to take that one?
Yes, sir. Mayor, Vice Mayor Board, basically we followed all our purchasing procedures. Felicia made sure we hit all the right notes. Advertised for bid, we had 2 responsive bidders, Sessions Paving and Adams Contracting out of Franklin, Kentucky. Both submitted good bids, were relatively close. Both were close to the engineer's estimate. Sessions Paving was the low bidder. I think it's $1,088,304.75. That's an excellent bid, much less than I thought it would be, especially given current material pricings and everything else going on throughout the nation. So that's great news for us. Sessions has worked in the city before. We've had relatively good experience with them. They did the most recently the paving at Industrial and New Sanford. If anybody's been through there and saw the new black stuff, it looks nice. S&W is our current contractor for all signal maintenance. They'll be replacing the signals out there as this is going to turn into a 4-legged intersection. Other than that, staff recommends that the board awards this contract to Sessions Paving, and we look forward to 1, fixing a safety condition, and 2, getting things moving forward.
Been a long time coming.
Yes.
To say from a planning standpoint that that junction been discussed for many, many years, and this is good that it's moving forward. It's good for the citizens and getting traffic flowing through there correctly. It's a big plus, big plus.
This will get one off your to-do list, sir.
That's correct. Good to
You'll stay
hear.
ahead of that curve.
Yes, sir, absolutely.
Okay, next we've got the uniforms for the fire department that we do each year. Felicia?
So we do it about 3 to 5 years. But with this current bid, I'm recommending CMS. We had a discussion, there was 2 responses. One was Summit Uniforms, CMS. The fire chief wanted it to be where they could order them online. Therefore, you keep a total so that they can't go over a certain amount uniform-wise. And CMS met that, and their prices were less. We're currently using them for fire and police, so we have had no problems with them.
Does anyone have any questions? Moving on to state contract purchase vehicle for the codes department.
The codes department vehicle is coming from Fort of Murfreesboro. I'm crossing everything that they still got it, and they didn't, because it's been on hold, but that is a state contract price. And then we have the maintenance van for the Parks and Recreation Department and Maintenance Department. That is a state contract with the Columbia. And Rodney King has always worked well with me when he was at Fort Murfreesboro. He and Randy got together and were able to put the shelving in the price of the vehicle. So that's the price with all the shelving that they need. And then we have one for the planning department. I guess you're gonna break down and let Bo have a vehicle.
One that runs, doesn't
One
break
that-
down.
He just wanted windows that rolled down.
And I was really shocked at the price of that one, but that is a state price, so you can't beat that one either.
Okay, next we have approved pole easements on City Hall property for the Nashville Electric Service. This is pretty straightforward. The easements are related to the City Dark Fiber project. Does anyone have any questions? This is a $20 revenue for the city. Next, we have approve an application for a roadblock to be conducted for the Shriners Hospital for Children from 9 a.m. until 2 p.m. on Saturday, June 12th, 2021, with a rain date of Saturday, June 26th, 2021, at the intersection of Murfreesboro Road and Stones River Road. This comes back every couple of years. Does anyone have any questions about it?
Good stuff right there.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Moving on to D, approve a contract with the Regional Transportation Authority for the provision of regional bus services for the fiscal year 2021-2022. This year's, our share of the cost is $9,000 this year, which I don't believe for the last 3 years they haven't gone up. So that's pretty amazing there. Any questions? Moving on to E, approve the fiscal year 2021-2022 contract with TDOT for the maintenance of Murfreesboro Road. And this is, this contract is $26,030.70. Does anyone have any questions? Next, we have approved change order number 2, final for the water treatment plant filter rehabilitation project. Hallelujah, we're at the final part of this.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Aldermen. This is for change order 2, which is the final adjusting change order for this project. It does include some additional repair items that we found when we got into the original plant side. And then it also adjusts the unit price bid items to reflect the actual quantities installed and establishes the final contract amount for this project. There was no adjustment to the substantial completion date. There was an adjustment of 13 additional days to the final completion date due to some temperature cure times that we ran into with being in the wintertime when that was applied and needing a little bit more. Change order 2 will add $471.70 and 13 calendar days to the final contract price and time for this project. The contractor has agreed with this change order number 2 and signed the form in the packets. Do you all have any questions?
I'm just really happy to see us get to the point where this is finally completed. I know it's been a huge undertaking, all the nodules, the media, the filters, getting those going, and it's amazing. This should have an impact on our water quality.
I totally agree. I'm glad it's here.
All right, well, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next, we have approved disposal and usage of homes located at the former Batson and Schreibman properties that were purchased by the city. This is just essentially, as it says, it's going to remove those homes. We've got some estimates to rehab the homes, which were $30,000 to $50,000 for one home, and $10,000 to $15,000 to demolish the remaining structures. Does anyone have any questions?
Is there no way, no rhyme or reason you can't sell those for material or something? Just
Well, some of the houses, they're pretty bad. You don't even want to go in. I know one of the floors is bowing. We've talked about, whether fire would want to do even a controlled burn, and they don't feel like it's even safe to do that.
another log cabin.
Any questions? Then we've got H, we've got to approve acquisition of easements for the Upper Hurricane Creek Interceptor Sewer Line Project. The total cost for these, it's $114,300. This is, these easements are necessary for the construction of the interceptor improvements for the Upper and Middle Hurricane Creek Interceptor. Anyone have any questions about this? Moving on to new business, first reading ordinance 2021-14, an ordinance to amend Title IX, Chapter 1 of the Laverne Municipal Code regarding transient vendors. This is a fun one. I know we've gone around and about, but this would essentially, for transient vendors, it would make their transient permit and their business license the same thing for 14 days. So does anyone have any questions? Moving on to number 8, Resolution 2021-15. Initial resolution authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $17,750,000 general obligation bond of the City of Laverne, Tennessee. And this is the bond that we have been discussing. This is one half of it in relation to both our road projects for infrastructure as well as police and fire. Does anyone have any questions? Seeing none, moving on to Resolution 2021-16, a resolution authorizing the issuance of general obligation bonds of the City of Laverne, Tennessee in the aggregate principal amount of not to exceed $17,750,000 in one or more series, making provision for the issuance, sale, and payment of said bonds, establishing the terms thereof and the disposition of proceeds therefore, and providing for the levy of taxes for the payment of principal of premium, if any, and interest on the bonds. A lot of legalese there. This is essentially the other half of the bond. No, it's not.
No, sir, and this is actually the same set of bonds. The first resolution, and by the way, Ashley McAnulty is here if you do have any specific questions. The first resolution is one that we have to advertise in the newspaper to give residents an opportunity to put a petition together, basically, and oppose that if they so choose. This goes into much more detail as far as these actual bonds, as far as how everything is done and the structure and payment and all of that. So this is the same bond issue for that $17,750,000. The reason we're only doing $17,750,000 is 3 years from now, we'll have to do another bond issue for the other half of that $35 million total that we plan to do.
And I got confused because we talked about that Monday night, and I thought they were one and then 3, and it's 3 years later, not.
Correct.
We go ahead and authorize it now. So, but this is the first half of it. So, does anyone have any questions?
We got the first half, it's locked in, we got the interest rate, the whole
No,
shebang?
that's what this is. That's what this is. This is authorizing.
All right, and who is this gentleman?
This is basically our financial guru when it comes to bonds. If you'd like to come up, you can answer any questions that the board may have.
I don't really have any questions for this gentleman. I was just, I didn't know. I didn't ask him to come up here. You said.
Thank you, Mayor. I do appreciate the opportunity to come before the board. I will say the bonds, this also authorizes the city to issue the bonds. We'll take competitive bids, so we will award it to the lowest bidder. The city will award it to the lowest bidder of the bond issue. So the rate has not been set at this point, but it will be taking bids from a number of national underwriters, whoever comes with the lowest, cheapest interest rate.
And in your experience at this time, what kind of interest rates you speculating?
Well, I'd projected.
I'm not trying to hold you to it.
No, it's fine. So in the current interest rate market, you're about a 1.5% on a 20-year fixed rate.
Nice.
It's a very low rate. I've been doing this 20 years, and you'd have to go back probably 100 years to get close to those rates that we're seeing right now.
Get that paperwork in, Bruce.
And sir, our credit as far as how we look as a city. Can you comment on that?
I can. So you're rated currently by Standard & Poor's. Standard & Poor's rates the city a AA rating with a stable outlook, and that AA rating is one step from the highest level, which is a AAA rated city. And so there's only 2 or 3 cities that are AAA rated in Tennessee. Of all the cities, there's only 2 counties that are rated AAA rated. So the city is working with your good financial management towards increasing that bond rating, which results in a lower interest rate for you when you go to market and you issue bonds for projects that you're looking at right now.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wait.
I'm just thanking him for answering my
Who's
question.
the AAA cities?
So Germantown, City of Brentwood,
Lord.
Bartlett, and there may be one more. Counties would be Williamson County and Hamilton County. Of course, the state of Tennessee is AAA rated, but certainly your finances are moving in that direction and have been. We've worked with you all over the years to try to upgrade those at every opportunity.
You say Germantown. Germantown's that little town right outside Memphis, right?
That's correct. That's correct.
Alderman Coach?
Just because you mentioned we're at the lowest it's been since you've been dealing with. What's the highest it's been that you've seen?
6% interest rates at one time when I first got into this business back in the early 90s, early 2000, late 90s.
So in your opinion, it's a good time to get out to get some.
The rates are really low from a borrowing perspective. So right now, I've seen 10-year issuances in the 1% or less, and I just have never seen anything like what we're seeing right now. Your cost of funds, so for a math mind, if you think about the time value of money and how you have a consumer price index over a period of time, everything, like your Coke today, you buy a Coca-Cola, today you're paying $1 or so from a machine. 20 years ago, you might have been paying a quarter or 30 cents for it. So that time value of money in the current interest rate environment, you're near zero for what your interest rates are over that period of time. So at some point, you'll be able to invest the city's money at a higher rate than you're borrowing right now, is our hope. That's what it's traditionally been.
Interesting. So you've looked at our financial background too. So do we, in your opinion, do we have the capabilities to pay this on the basis
yes,
as required?
You do, and based on your general fund performance and your tax rate and your sales tax revenue and the other revenues of the city, you are going to be in a position to make the payments, provided you don't go and spend beyond what your ability to pay is. But in the current market, in the current environment, you do have the ability to pay for the debt service.
And that's for the full $35 million?
That's right.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Do these bonds work like a regular loan? If we have extra money, you can pay it towards it?
That's right. So the bond market, traditionally, you have a call provision, meaning that you can call those bonds in after a certain period of time. Because they're providing such a low interest rate for you in the market right now, you can call those in at, say, the 9th year and after, pay them off early. You could escrow funds between now and that 9th year, pay them off in the 9th year. So you do have that option. Some of the folks that we compete with have what's called a put provision. We don't have a put provision. A put provision would mean that the lender could put the bonds to you. You think you've got a 20-year amortization, they could put them to you in the 10th year. We don't have that in these bonds. So you make your debt service payments like a home mortgage or your car loan. The bank can't come calling on City of Laverne to try to make you pay it off early. But you have that option if you want to after the 9th year.
Do you have anything, Alderwoman Honeycutt?
The only question I have, and it may be along the lines of Steve and, not knowing with that last one, but once the rate is set, it's fixed and locked in,
That's
correct?
Right. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Our say for me personally, for our family's budget, we're not a fan of debt. We don't like debt.
Right.
But at the same time, with the financial standing for the city and the lengthy list of items that we are trying to tackle to keep the city moving forward, I think this is the right time for it.
There's a difference between borrowing for debt and spending money to make money.
It's building for the future.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Yeah, it's a capital investment for the city, and we are seeing a lot of folks wanting to do these type projects right now.
wonderful.
Thank you. I
Any other
appreciate it.
questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to number 10, Resolution 2021-17, a resolution authorizing the issuance of approximately $12,715,000 in aggregate principal amount of water and sewer revenue and tax refunding bonds to the city of Laverne, Tennessee, making provision for the issuance, sale, and payment of said bonds, establishing the terms thereof and the disposition of proceeds therefrom, and providing for the levy of taxes for the payment of the principal of premium, if any, and interest on the bonds. So this is just a reissuing of existing bonds. That's going to save us some money. I want to say you said over the time it would be north of $1 million. Could you confirm what that amount was? I couldn't remember off the top of my head.
Sorry, I should have stayed up here. Thank you, Mayor. So the current bonds, the 2013 and 14 water and sewer bonds that you have outstanding are at a 3% interest rate. This is looking to refinance those to about a 1.5% interest rate, saving a little over $500,000 between now and 2033. So 2022 to 2033, about $45,000 to $50,000 a year for your water sewer.
Wonderful, wonderful.
That's the net of all costs.
Wonderful. Any questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Now we'll let you sit down and not have to get back up. Moving on to number 11, Resolution 2021-18, a resolution of the City of Laverne Board of Mayor and Aldermen to declare property owned by the city to be surplus to the city's needs and directing disposal of the same. This is 6 vehicles on the list. You have 3 that are seized vehicles, 3 that are former police cars. We are making sure that all decals and the name of Laverne is off of them. Is that correct, Bruce and Chief Davis?
They've already been spray painted, but whatever else we need to do will be done.
I know what you're talking about. I forgot about that. They were on a video or something.
Yes, sir.
I remember that.
By no fault of our own, but
Yeah,
it happened. Yeah.
Well, I will say I'm glad to see this on here. I know the chief and I have discussed this because we've had several of those cars sitting back there for months and months, and this helps clean that area up. So, does anyone have any questions? Wonderful. Moving on to appoint or remove board and committee members. First, we have the Local Emergency Planning Committee. We've got 2 terms that are vacant. The Box 100 term is vacant with the resignation of Laura Davidson. The new chief, Christopher Buck, has requested to be placed on this committee for Box 100. And then, of course, we do still have the police position, which will be filled once we have the chief position permanently filled. Moving on to B, Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee. We've got 1 term vacant. We have 2 applicants, Dylan Forbes and a Kristen Morlock. This has been advertised on Channel 3, on Facebook, and on Twitter as well. So if we get any more applicants between now and next week, they will be added to this. Moving on to our Senior Citizens Advisory Committee, we've got 2 terms vacant. That of Elizabeth Dandler and Jennifer Webb, which I believe Ms. Dandler moved out of the city, so that's why she resigned. We do currently have 1 applicant, which is Anthony Honeycutt. These have been advertised on Channel 3, Facebook, and Twitter, and if we get any other applicants, we will add them to the list. Next, we have 2 FYIs. We've got the Board of Zoning Appeals. Again, Elizabeth Dandler has resigned. She's been serving here for a while now, and she has moved outside of the city. So we will advertise that on Channel 3, on Facebook, and once we have applications, that will come back before this committee or before this board. And then an FYI, we have 1 term expiring for Floyd Dennis with the Economic Development Advisory Committee. We will reach out to him to see if he wishes to stay on this committee. We'll also begin advertising that on Channel 3 and on social media. But at this point, it's just informational. It will not be on the agenda. Moving on to Mayor and Alderman comments. Alderman Waldron.
First, I want people to remember the hot weather's coming on.
Oh.
And remember your pets. Make sure they got shade and plenty of fresh water. And June is National Health Awareness Month. People needs to be health awareness. Remember, school's about gone. Kids is gonna be in the streets. Be more careful on when you're riding around. And the library's kicking off the summer reading program June the 5th. And everybody have a safe holiday. And hope to see everybody back here Tuesday.
I did make one mistake, 'cause I'm going off the electronic version, not the paper version that's in front of me, but we do have one other item to discuss, which is the request for proposals for the operation of the water treatment plant. This is something we discussed at our budget workshops as far as what direction we want to go, whether it would be going in a direction that the city takes over the operations, whether we stay with Infomart, whether we open it up and do a longer request for proposals. So we discussed it and said we would put that on the June agenda. So now's the time to discuss that.
How do we evaluate the people that's doing it now? Is that just a something, or is there something we fill out and send to Bruce, or?
As far as the board reviewing them,
Well, just if we're gonna talk about proposals,
well, it's to determine if we want to, in what direction do we want to go for the future. So do we want to, and this is, I'm going to speak for me and my opinions. I think we should have a request for proposals and have a longer time frame than we've had in the past. I remember whenever I joined the board as an alderman, my first year, we had a contract renewal, and the request from one of the groups wanting to proposal, they wanted more time. They said they needed more time. They just didn't have enough time to get everything in, that the current operators know it better because they're there and they have to go through, and they don't know the system as well as they do. So they wanted more time, which was ultimately denied. So I would say, for me, it would be open it up and let's get some proposals from different groups and give them longer amount of time to take that. At the same time, though, and this is something that we discussed at the budget workshop, is several of the board members said, if we had to take it over right this moment, we're not in a place to do that. And I agree with that. But I would say for whatever contract, a 3-year contract, a 5-year contract, whatever that contract is, we put in there, at the end of it, we take it over. This way, we can start ramping up. It gives time for, and I'll throw you under the bus because I know you love me to do it, but I'll throw Kyle Brown under the bus on this one. It'll give Kyle time to start working on coming up with a plan of what we would need to operate it, costs, both for staff, finding the right people. It would give us that opportunity, whether it's a 3 or a 5 year. And it would give us a pathway forward. But I'm just one guy throwing out some ideas. What are y'all's thoughts?
From everybody that I've spoken with, from current to past, I've not heard anything good about the city running that water department. I'm sorry, if I'm offending somebody, that's fine, but for everything that I gathered, when the city had it, it didn't work well, from my understanding. But if we get more proposals in, or, I don't know how we got to the point to where do we need to evaluate who's doing it now, or if we just want to see if somebody can do it better for cheaper. Did I make you mad, Bruce, when I said the city?
No, sir, you didn't make me mad at all.
I'm just going by what I've heard.
But I will say, I think when the plant first opened, for the first, I don't know how many years, several years, you know, I think everything was done really well. We had some good operators, we had some good employees out there. Unfortunately, you know, it appears things did not stay that way, and obviously we ran into some trouble in the mid-2000s, and we needed to go to this route to bring in a third party to help us get out of that problem and put us back on the right path. But then again, you know, we've had various issues off and on over the years with the third party, and they have made obvious decisions to make things better, and they have done better over the last few years. But, you know, we're getting close to the end of the current contract. In my opinion, it's always good to go out and see if there's a better option out there. But if we want to plan for the future as well, you know, as far as the city taking it back over, we need time to do that and plan for that and budget for that and whatever it needs to be. So I fully understand the need to put this out for an RFP or Q, whatever it's going to be. And, you know, we review these when they come in and make the decision on what we feel is best for the city for this next term, and then begin planning for the time period after that.
I agree with the competition thing. I think that's good. How many companies out there do this kind of stuff?
I really don't know the answer to that. I know that there's several. I think we had 3 the last time we put this out for proposals. And there was 1 or 2 that, you know, did not submit at that point. So, you know, there's probably a half a dozen or more that would be qualified to do it. But I really don't know the answer to that.
So do we vote when it comes time? Do we just vote and say, yes, we want to get proposals?
I don't think it takes action for us to go ahead and put the request for proposals out. Staff will work on getting that proposal ready. Obviously, when the proposals come back, you know, staff will review them and rank them. We'll probably work with Griggs and Maloney closely on that as well. They have assisted us in the past with that. And then, you know, we will bring that to the board for your recommendation, you know, at that time as far as what this board wants to do.
I'm done.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to follow up with what you said. I think let's go out for the proposal and see what bids we can get, and then ask the staff to put together a plan or a budget for what it would cost for the city to do it. And let's take a look and see what's the best transaction.
I agree with getting proposals. The only question I have is, let's say we get proposals and we pick one company to do it, and we go with your idea of the city taking it over at the end of the 3-year, 5-year contract. What if we're not up to par for some unknown reason when that contract is up? How would we go from there?
Then we would just simply either renegotiate the contract or put it back out there for another request for proposals and go from there.
But it would still give us the opportunity to take it over, regardless of the outcome.
If that's what the board wanted, yes.
Okay.
Bruce, when does the present contract run out?
I believe it's the end of January of 2023.
So we've got this, yeah.
And that's the point of starting early. That's why we wanted to go ahead and have these conversations out there so that if we're going to give groups time, we give them ample time. Alderman Waldron, any thoughts?
I'm sorry, what was y'all discussing? I was thinking about something else.
The water treatment plant.
Water treatment, yeah.
Your thoughts on whether we should put out?
On citizens' mayor comment.
No, I made the statement saying that we'd missed one discussion item. And so that discussion item was about requests for proposals for the water treatment plant and what we should do going forward.
I'd probably like we always done in the past, you know, that when a contract went up, you know, we'd put it out for bid. We got 2 opportunities, we see you take it over or is a private company to take it.
Okay. So would it be fair to say at this point that at least the board is wanting to put forth to do an RFP or RFQ, depending on which letter of the week you like? And go ahead and start that process, and then, of course, once we get back the proposals, then we can discuss as far as if we want to include in there an end time for us to take over or not. Is that fair from everyone?
Sir?
Thoughts? Okay. Bruce, I know you like direction sometimes. That one's more clear than we've pretty much had.
Yes, sir, we know what to do.
So, thank you. Okay, going back to Mayor and Alderman comments, Alderwoman Honeycutt.
I want to say a huge, huge thank you to Chief Davis and Chief Beasley and all the guys and gals with the police and fire department for coming out the other day, yesterday as a matter of fact, with the seniors. You want to see a bunch of people all riled up for men and women in uniform? That's the place to be. That made their whole entire day. They talked about it way after you guys left. The goodie bags were a big hit, and they were ready to knock each other over if they didn't have their goodie bags. So those were a big hit, and it was awesome. And I really want to say thank y'all.
Wonderful. Alderman Coates.
Short and sweet. Hope everyone enjoys their upcoming holiday weekend.
Thank you. Vice Mayor, no?
Go Preds.
Amen. I forgot.
Absolutely. I want to thank everyone who came out and spoke tonight. It is absolutely imperative that we hear from people on issues, not just at rezonings, but all throughout. So even after we're done with this, I hope you stay involved and engaged with our city government. I do want to thank everyone who came out for the block party, with the exception of Chief Beasley, who throws a very, very mean fastball and did a very good job dunking me in that dunk tank. And want to thank Alderman Coates and Alderman No, who both joined us in the dunk tank, not at the same time, though. Although Alderwoman Honeycutt, I heard you had some kind of excuse that you just suddenly not jump in.
I had LASIK, so I couldn't help the date that they chose. So
Well, I have heard that for Old Timers Day they're bringing it back
I will be there.
with David McGowan in there as well as Bruce Richardson. So
Won't be any water left.
staff is lining up very quickly to get their tickets. But hopefully, it was a great time out there. There was so many cornhole teams. I want to say as much talk as I heard, we were all eliminated from this board.
Cheated.
Yes, cheated as in outplayed. So, and I will say, good job, Alderman Coates, since obviously you beat him as badly as you beat us. So,
We tried. We had a good time.
but and that's what it was. It was a good time for the community. Lots of people came out. So very, very big thanks for Parks and Rec and Maintenance for organizing this. It was a great event. We look forward to Old Timers Day. Hopefully we'll have a dunk tank back and can get some more board members out there and have some fun with it. With that, call the meeting adjourned.